Welcome to Nature Magic. Today I have the pleasure of talking to Jim Wilson and Mark Carmody. They believe that getting to know birds is one of the best ways to engage with the natural world. The new updated Birds of Ireland Field Guide, published by the nature-loving Gill Books, contains over 260 species and an incredible 1,600 photos. It is a simple identification guide for beginners and experts. Jim is a writer and former chairman of Birdwatch Ireland, and we will find out in a minute how he got together with the brilliant photographer Mark to create the ultimate guide to birds in Ireland. So, hi everybody. I've never recorded a podcast with two people before. So today we have Jim and Mark. So Jim, who is on my screen at the moment, where are you talking to me from today?
I'm talking from Cove in County Cork.
Lovely. And Mark, where are you?
I'm currently in Glasnevin in Dublin.
Very good. So I was doing a little bit of prep beforehand, and I was thinking of asking you where you met, and then I thought maybe you met on Twitter. No, how did you get your partnership going for this amazing book, Birds of Ireland?
Um, well,
Come on, Mark.
Jim is my uncle, so I've
Oh,
known him my entire life.
oh, that's good.
Much to driving Jim absolutely crazy. So that's the relationship.
That's
My mom's brother.
very good. And when did you start the photography, or when did you start photographing birds?
I started photographing birds in 2005 or six when I moved to Japan. But I've been bird watching with Jim since the mid 80s.
I mean, the book is incredible because it tells you if you're a beginner exactly what equipment you need. And
Yep.
what I love as well is the little maps of the distribution at the back. They're really good. But I mean, each page, the photographs and the detail is amazing. So, how did you collaborate on it?
Well, the way it worked really was I had an idea. I wanted to do a bird book, and if you're a bird watcher, you one of the side effects of the affliction is you collect books. As my wife Anne would say, another bird book. It's kind of suggesting that you should only need one, but no. So we collect books, and of course identification guides from different parts of the world as well. I've been to the States and other places, and you kind of come across and think, oh, that I like the way that's done, or I like the way this is done. And what I thought was for Ireland, and we myself and Mark have collaborated on a number of books in the past, our main focus being to produce Irish content on natural history, because when I was growing up, anyway, it was all Britain and Europe, Europe, but there was
Yeah,
very little
exactly.
with just Ireland, So I was there looking at woodpeckers and nuthatches and all sorts of things, and no, you're not going to see them in Ireland, even though we have woodpeckers now, but back then, no. So so that was really how it started. And then I thought, photographic guide, because photography had come on so much. In my day, you wouldn't go near a photographic guide because it would be an out of focus black and white image of something miles away that you couldn't learn anything from.
Mm.
Whereas now, digital photography, it's just changed it completely. And of course, I being a lazy uncle, I needed someone to go take all the photographs and get cold and wet and miserable.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I know what I do. I'll pull rank on my nephew, who got himself a fine big camera and was taking lots of great bird photographs. And I said, do you want to collaborate on this? And like a fool, he said, yeah.
Okay.
And
So, I
really,
mean,
that's where it started.
yeah, the photographs. What is so good is that you get the bird from all different angles because you might look at a book and go, that doesn't really look like it. But when you get so many different angles, so
Yeah.
I have to ask, Mark, give us a story about maybe a challenging bird that you had to track down and take a photograph of.
God, to be honest, they're all challenging because they all move. Jim once said if we were doing a book on plants, it would have been easier because they just stay in the same spot. I think uh, some certain species are more challenging than others. For example, birds of prey, because they're top predators. They're quite spooked by man because they would have been, they get shot at and things like that. And I they're still my bogey birds. So some of the birds of prey like buzzards, kestrel, sparrowhawk, because they fly so quickly and they're in and out so fast because they're the kind of snatch and grab type of birds of prey that come in and grab birds unexpectedly. So they're quite difficult. And white-tailed eagle was a particularly difficult bird that trying to photograph in Ireland because they've been reintroduced by the Golden Eagle Trust and great work by Alan Mee down in Killarney. And I got in touch with Alan Mee and asked him, any tips. I have a license from the National Parks and Wildlife Service to photograph the white-tailed eagles in Killarney, and I just collaborated with Alan, saying, "Is there any places you could recommend I go and camp out?" And he said, "I have just the spot." So we arranged a date. He picked up some roadkill for me off the road, um, and he put it out on the lakeside in a kind of an isolated spot where he wouldn't get disturbed by people and dog walkers. And I set up my hide. The kill was probably about 60 to 70 meters away, so plenty of space. And I was nestling underneath trees and hedges, and the white-tailed eagles came in and sat in the tree above me and remained there for the entire day. And I mean the entire day. I was in there from dawn to dusk. All that came down were loads of hooded crows, a couple of ravens that were aggressively chased off by the hoodies. And then the following day, the exact same thing happened. So I only had 2 days because I was working. So this was a Saturday and a Sunday. So I had to get back to work on Monday. So I went I went back to work on Monday, and Alan rang me. He said, "Where are you?" I said, I'm at my desk." I said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm down at the kill." I said, "How's it going?" He said, "There's two white-tailed eagles on it." I was like, Jesus. And he said, "It's not because you were there, because Alan was on the other side of the lake and he couldn't see me in the hide, that a portable hide that I had." So I never managed to get a shot, like a good close-up shot like that, in Ireland. So I got them elsewhere on my travels, but yeah, that was quite a challenge.
Yeah, they're a magnificent bird. And what got you into the bird watching, Jim, at the beginning? Was there a particular bird that appealed to you?
Not really, no. I find it hard to put a finger on it, to be honest, which is why I often say I think it was in the blood when I was born. You know what I mean? This kind of attraction to wildlife. And when I was a young kid, we had a library up around the corner from where I lived, and we didn't have a garden or anything. We were in the garden we had was any grass growing out of the gutter on the top of the house. So but I used to go up to the library, and I was attracted as a young kid, of course. Pictures would attract you, the images rather than the words, because they were often too big and, whatever. And I was just transfixed by wildlife of any description. You could show me a picture of anything from a worm to a stellar seal, and I was going, wow, this is amazing. I was easily pleased. And I think then that kind of, that was the start. And my parents obviously always pushed us to explore and expand our boundaries in all directions. And then at school, I met there was a friend of mine, Sean Pierce in particular, and he said, "Let's go bird watching." And we were like 12, 13. And back then in the early 1970s, it was neither profitable nor popular to be
Okay.
a guy going bird watching. So, but anyway, we persisted, and yeah, the rest is history. Then it became a lifelong passion.
Yeah, wonderful. So we're lucky at the farm. We have a guy living here. He's an ecologist, Ramiro Krieger, and he's done a list of all the birds that he's seen here. So just looking at the list, the red list species he's seen the Eurasian curlew. We have the barn owl, the common kestrel, and we have a lot of the amber list as well. So, but the one that I bonded with was a little jackdaw, and so last year. And every morning, I'd go out to the ponies field and I was picking up the ponies' droppings because we're a visitor attraction. So, I was tied the horse's feed on the top of a pole. And then one day she decided to leave me a horse's dropping. She was like, this girl is obviously, she loves them. Every morning she comes, she picks them up. I'm going to give her one. So she gave me that for a few days. And then she gave me a bit of the horse's hoof.
Oh,
And yeah, she gave me a few things. She gave me a little white stone and everything. But I just thought it was so cute that she had actually been watching me thinking, God, this girl is mad for the horse droppings. I'm going to give her one as a reward for the food. Any particular bird that either of you sort of had a special connection with that you want to talk about or especially appeals to you?
for me, it's a tough one because I grew up by the sea, so seabirds in general would be, I guess, it's the backdrop, it's the soundtrack of my youth, especially in Cove. And Cove was a serious fishing port when you had thousands of tons of fish landed every winter. You walk downtown and all you hear was the cry of the gulls, and particularly herring gulls and greater blackbacks, lesser blackback gulls. During in springtime, black-headed gulls. So seabirds really, for me, kind of they just get my blood pumping. Really, like you get an adrenaline rush when you kind of see decent seabirds, and I still get excited seeing gannets and seeing great skuas. And if anyone who's ever been walking on kind of the coast with me, and a great skua flies past, which we call bonksies from the Norse word that the Scots use. I will scream bonksy like a 2 year old screaming at the sweets, and it's all from going sea watching with Jim.
Yeah,
Bring us out to
I was
take.
wondering if you remember the first time you went bird watching with Jim.
I, I think the first time I bird watching with Jim was in February '85. That's my first memory of it, and the reason which makes me start old, which I suppose I'm getting on. But anyway, February '85. I went bird watching with Jim and Sean Pierce, the friend he mentioned there, and my friend Kieran Cronin as well. The four of us went bird watching, um, and it was a cold February morning, um, and we just walked the island. Cove's on an island, it's a great island, one of the biggest inhabited islands in the coast, and we walked around it, and it would take all day. And we got to Coskinny, and there was a gadwall, which is a species of duck, which at the time would have been quite scarce in East Cork, and still remains a scarce duck in Ireland. And that was exciting because Jim and Sean were kind of saying you don't see this on Coskinny Lake too often. And then we got downtown, and of course, February, a lot of the herring would be landed to be salted, iced, and shipped out to Europe and to elsewhere. And there was, of course, there was thousands and thousands of gulls. And we were walking down the station steps, which is a set of steps going down from the kind of the high road to the low road down to the train station. And that's where the deep water quay is, where the trawlers would have landed their fish. And Jim shouted out that he thinks he had a Ross's gull. Now it is a little bit more colourful than that, because Ross's gull is a seriously rare bird from the Arctic,
Oh, so his
and so
language was a little bit more colorful.
a little bit more colourful, you know,
Never.
and I was kind of going, what's going on? So the four of us just raced. Well, Jim and Sean just raced down the steps, so we followed. We hadn't a clue what was going on. So, and then they confirmed it was a Ross's gull. It turned out to be the first record for Cork, and I think the eighth or ninth or 10th record for Ireland. And it was a first winter bird, so it was a very young bird, which I don't think there's been too many in Ireland seen. So that for me was quite a memorable day because it was pre-mobile phone. So Jim legged it uptown to the phone box and rang a few of the local Cork bird watchers, and then they all started arriving about an hour or two later. And I just thought this was just so exciting when you're seeing this amazing bird that's hangs out with polar bears and wolves in Canada and all that kind of jazz. And there it is in my hometown, and I just thought this was fascinating. So then, as Jim said, with the books at the time, the gold book you looked at was Peterson's guide, photographic guide, which Jim actually had a photograph published in the second edition, the Thayer's Gull, I think, if memory serves, or possibly
The Rosses.
The Rosses.
That Rosses.
That Rosses. So Jim would have photographed that with film, pre-digital, and it was just
Yeah.
I mean, I had an interest in nature as it was, and wildlife in general, but that hooked me into bird watching from there on out, and it becomes almost like an obsession from there on out.
Yeah, that's really painted it so well for the listeners, because I was thinking of people, sitting listening to the stories and imagining what's going on. So thank you. That was a beautiful description. And we know Jim has to go at 10. So I'd like to ask a couple of things. What can people do for the birds? What would you like to see being done to protect the birds? I know there's various things going on. And if there was any good news stories, that would be great, because I know there's a lot of bad news stories.
Yeah, well, the bad news seems to get more airtime than good news, and there is good news out there, because like a lot of things, when things are going well, nobody talks about it. It's like I always say, if you get nobody at the AGM of your organization, you're doing something right. It's when it's packed, you're in trouble. So like that, the bad news out there. What I mean, what can we do? There's lots we can do. We've got local elections coming up in June. It's very, very, very important that your local representatives are made aware of the fact that you care for your environment, and you'd like them to do the same on your behalf. It's often taken for granted, and during COVID, which was a terrible time for everybody, there was a little silver lining in that it brought out all the wildlife watchers in the country. That, like, I know that some of them were like trying to find things to do and trying to find things to do for their kids, but I mean, the poster on the wall behind me here, which are almost all of Mark's photographs. One of our branch members here in Birdwatch Ireland in Cork, he said, let's do a challenge, a stay-at-home birdwatch challenge. And so we took images from the guide, the first edition, and we made up this poster behind, and we put it up on our Facebook page, and we ended up close to 800,000 views. Yes, and I don't know how many thousand downloads. And we were going, where have all these people been? And the point, the reason I'm telling you this is, whatever a politician might tell you or anybody might tell you, deep down, the majority of people in Ireland do have an interest in wildlife of some sort or other. It's like when I ask at a meeting, hands up those of you who are bird watchers, if it's a general group. And you'll get one or two will definitely put up, and then there's a couple of half ones who don't want to be actually labeled as a bird watcher. But then if I show them a picture of a robin, and they all go, oh, and I said, how many have seen a robin? They all put their hands up. I said, yeah, you're all bird watchers. I mean, what's all this? I'm not a bird watcher. But so really, I know there's other important things that the government has to do, but they should find space to look after our biodiversity and our wildlife, because the pressures are increasing all the time. The good news stories really is, like, compared to when I was going to schools now, and I do a lot of school visits, not so much now, I used to an awful lot. The kids are far more clued into the environment than we would ever have been. And everything does count. Every little thing counts. So anytime a teacher can even take 5 minutes out of their day and talk about nature, they don't have to be an expert. They don't even have to know much. It's not difficult to introduce it. And I've worked with teachers where we actually used nature and birds to teach other subjects. You can do maths, you can do English, you can do art, you can do all those things, and nature as well. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. So that's what I would think people should do. First and foremost, if they're talking to local candidates, just mention it. It doesn't have to be the main thing. I'm sure you have other concerns, but definitely say, and by the way, we'd like to make sure that our natural heritage is looked after as much as anything else. And the good news stories, we're starting. It's kind of a funny good news story in some respects, in a strange good news story in so far as thanks to climate change, we are now getting species appearing in Ireland that we would never have got before. Not just birds, but dragonflies, like the emperor dragonfly and stuff like that. But the birds, the little egret came in the last few decades, is now breeding here. But it's now been followed by the great white egret, which is its much larger cousin. and even things like cattle egrets are coming in, and of course the woodpecker, which came here not probably through climate change, but because our next door neighbor in Britain had a full house and was overflowing, and they kind of popped over the sea, and they will be in a garden near you anywhere in Ireland. I would put money on it within the next 5 to 10 years. And that is fantastic to see. So things are dynamic. Things are changing all the time. There are winners and losers, no matter what happens. And there will always be wildlife. I don't know whether there'll always be human beings, but there will always be wildlife. It just may not be the way we would like it to be. And so we got to do our best in that. And the book, I hope, would get people interested and show them that, wow, there are a lot of birds here. And actually, I can identify more than I thought I could, you know.
Yeah, exactly. It is an easy entry, even though it's very professional, comprehensive. I'm sure I mean, it's amazing, but it's easy entry because of the photographs. You've got a few different views of the birds, and that makes it.
Yeah, that was deliberate. The whole
Yeah.
Yeah.
idea was that, some people would say, "Oh, there's too many images on the page." Well, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to get the feel for the bird by
Mm.
seeing all the different poses. And for to Mark, I would have given him lists, and he knew already what we needed too. But I would give him a list of, oh, we need a view from behind.
Mm.
You don't get too many books where they show you a shot from behind or from underneath or from.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's often the view you're going to get.
Yeah.
And sometimes
Exactly.
they're trying to describe a bird they saw from an angle that is not in their bird book, and you're kind of going, not really sure.
Yeah.
Whereas this, a feel for the colors and the patterns and the shapes of the birds, and that was our aim in producing the book in this format.
Yeah, I get it. It's really good. And some of the pictures, I have to say, they're
Uh-huh.
absolutely
Uh-huh.
adorable. Oh my goodness, the cold tit and the long-tailed tit, and oh, the white throat. Yeah, no, they're really fabulous. But I do agree that everybody actually, when you ask them, they are concerned about nature. It's being kind of, in a way, diluted because of the climate conversation, because it's tagged on. But
Yeah.
I went to the meeting for the new Galway plan, and they're doing heritage and biodiversity. You know how you have these meetings and put in your views. There wasn't one person that spoke about heritage. There was an Irish language guy, and we put his thing down, and he was, but and they were saying, yeah, but talk about heritage, and everyone was like, no, the heritage is fine. We're okay with the heritage, with the built heritage. We're
Oh
okay.
well.
It was all nature and biodiversity, pages and pages of it every
Brilliant.
time. So
Brilliant.
people do care. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's to get, that it's to get that little link, like you said, the robin, have you seen a
Yeah.
robin?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then people feel like, oh, I don't know anything about that. Oh, well, I do know that. And maybe that's the
Yeah.
sort of way in. So
It is. Yeah.
yeah. So what would be your best or most proudest photo, Mark, in the book? What would you
God.
be? Yeah.
Um,
Which ones do you like? Or you look at
uh,
it and go, yes, that was.
that's a tough question. I think the waders section, so the
Mhm.
shorebirds, the dunlins, purple sandpipers, curlews, I
Outstanding.
really enjoy photographing that kind of group of birds because you can just sit down in the mud, um, throw a peg over your nose, and wait for them to come to you because they're especially in autumn when you have the young birds coming in from the high Arctic. That you could be the first human being they ever clap eyes on. They've no idea what you are, but if you sit still and are, you're not a threat to them. You're non-threatening to them. They'll walk right up to your feet and feed away, oblivious to your presence. And I really love photographing them for that reason, because you're right in with them. So you're in amongst it. So you're almost part of it. So when I take photographs like that and I look back at them, I can relive being there, and I can get the smells and I can get the feeling and just the sense of quietness. So when I'm coming home after a busy day in the office and the noise and the madness of Dublin, and I sit down and look at some photographs, and I get translocated back to that spot. And for me, it's a great way to kind of, I guess, calm myself and kind of
Mhm.
rezone myself. So I love looking at the shorebird photographs
Yeah,
for that
they're
reason.
beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, obviously you've great skills as a photographer, but you also have to have the skill of being the non-threatening energy when you're there,
Yeah,
because you're sitting there and you're clearly giving, I mean, you're a large mammal that they've never seen before.
yeah.
and yet you're clearly giving off an energy of, I'm not going for you, so yeah, that's a
I
great
think
skill.
having been a bird watcher for probably, 30, well, 20 odd years before I started taking photographs really kind of helped that, because you kind of develop your field skills,
Mhm.
and you develop almost you get a sense of how the birds are reacting, how they're behaving, and you can read that. And that comes from experience and just from being out bird watching, whether it's walking through your park or whether it is sitting down looking at shorebirds. So I think that really helped me as a photographer, to, I guess, to develop my skills and to get better and better, because understanding the bird's behavior and being able to read little ticks and things that they might do, a sudden raise of the head or a certain particular call, and suddenly you kind of go, okay, what's going to happen next? So that, I think the field craft is important. I think bird watching really helped that. So if there's any budding wildlife photographers out there, my best advice to you is concentrate on bird watching for a while, and play around with the camera, but learn your field craft and learn the behavior of birds first, because that will really help you improve as a bird photographer.
Yeah, I never heard the phrase fieldcraft before, but that is a good phrase. And also, obviously, it's mindful. It's good for the mental health. And I know Jim has to go in a minute. I have a question, which, if you don't want to answer, that's fine. But what's your opinion on the gun clubs?
Um,
Yes.
yeah, my opinion on a gun club is I actually find it a contradiction in many ways. If you talk to any gun club people, a lot of them will say they love nature and they conserve nature and they do that. And then they have to engage in this violent act, which is not for survival. It's more for pastime, sport. And I just think, and I just don't like killing things. I mean, I will, if I go out to the garden at night and I step on a snail, I say sorry. I go, oh, I feel terrible. I absolutely feel terrible to my core. And I think everybody should feel like that towards the fellow creatures that we share this planet with, and we do a lot better. But the gun clubs, mystery to me. I don't understand it. Even the noise from a gun, especially over a wetland,
Mm.
it just sends everything up. And why they can't just swap the gun
For
for
a
a camera.
camera. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a
And
lovely positive statement.
and you do have the hunt. Mark will
Hmm.
definitely, and I'm the same. It's like hunting. Yeah, and
Yep.
you capture it, but you don't
Yeah.
kill it. You
Yeah.
capture it on your digital camera, and you can show all your friends.
Yeah.
And now the technology is so good, you don't have to take years to get into it. And I think they'd be far better dropping the guns and picking up the cameras and continuing their conservation work or whatever.
Mhm.
And we shouldn't be taking sides by saying, oh, well, I love these, so we're going to protect these. And anything that threatens them, we'll kill them. And I'm sorry, but for anyone who's a shooter or a gun club person listening, that is the case. It's like, you know, um, I think you need to step back from nature, enjoy it for what it is. If there's a predator taking a chick out of the nest or whatever, in many ways, the system is so beautiful because of these things,
Mm.
not despite them.
Mm.
And in certain circumstances, yes, we need to intervene because as human beings, we've upset the
Yeah.
balance hugely. But
Yeah.
in general,
Hmm.
hands off, like magpies in the garden. You should be looking at the cat, not the magpie. The cat is doing far more damage, but the
Yeah.
cat is related to us. They live in our houses and all that. So we're not going to say the cat's a baddie,
Yeah.
but we will say the magpie is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Cats
that's
are
my
cats
that's my
are
view on the gun clubs. I wish they would put it's a no it's there's no need for it anymore. There
Mm.
is no need for it.
I think all this education and getting people the awareness and everything, that is the solution,
Mhm.
because, there's some attitudes, like I know somebody who said, oh yeah, they're nesting again here above my door. So I knock the nest down.
Yeah.
This is recently. That bird has come from Africa.
Mm.
And you're going to knock its nest down. Like, but it is education. That's a nice person, a kind, lovely person.
Yes,
It's also
yes.
against the law.
That's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, you've
So,
hit the nail on the head. A lot
Yeah.
of the destruction and damage to nature, particularly in Ireland, is not deliberate. I know all about this bird and where it comes from, what it does, and even so, I'm still going to do A, B, and
yeah,
C. I'm not going to look for a
yeah,
workaround. it's often down to the fact that they actually don't value the birds because they're not aware of their life cycle, what they have to go through. And I think once they learn that, it becomes more valuable. And then you're left with more of a dilemma about how can I figure this out to allow the bird do that. Maybe, block it up for next year if it's, pooping all over your car or whatever, which is fair enough. But there's a way around these things besides being destructive all the time.
Yeah, and I know you have to go, but I think things like the migration routes, people tracking the birds on the migration routes. I think everybody loves to see that, and that grabs everybody's attention. Like, oh, where is it now? And oh, it's a cookie, and it came from there, and it's coming to Ireland. And then you really start getting an interest in this great challenge and this great story about the birds. But anyway, anybody that wants to start on it, Birds of Ireland, a field guide, and we'll be putting all the links and everything in the show notes. Yeah, it was a great conversation. Does anybody have anything else to say? I've never interviewed two people, but you did really well. Would you like to say something to finish off to the people who are listening?
Well, I hope they got something from our conversation, which was very enjoyable. I hope they can get a better sense of, what enjoyment you can get. I think you could hear it in Mark's voice, and I hope you heard it in my voice, the genuine excitement and interest and love for what we do. And I mean, bird watching is like a lifelong hobby, and you don't have to be an athlete. And when you get too old to walk or run, so long as you've got one good eye and one good ear, you can enjoy birds and a window to the outside. That's all you need. So even if you can't get out of your house, you can still watch the garden birds. There's so many ways, and it's just with you. And they're always doing something different. I'm still excited when I see a robin. I'm as excited now as the first day I saw a robin. No difference. And like as you were saying to Mark, what's your favorite this? When I'm asked, they're all my favorite, whatever one I'm looking at. And I think if people can take a piece of that from our conversation and maybe give it a go, just, and maybe buy the book. Give it a go. That'll be my word to people. Go and enjoy it. It's free. You can get the book out on loan from the library. True.
So I'm just going to say, and the beauty of bird watching is that you can take it everywhere, no matter where you are, whether you're sitting in your car in traffic, whether you're on holidays in Spain or Kerry or Donegal or America or South America, you bring it with you. And so it adds another dimension to your life, I think, and it makes you more aware of your surroundings, which I think is hugely important, because a lot of people walk around quite blinkered with, I walk around with headphones on too when I'm walking through town and stuff like that. But I think when you're a bird watcher, you can still look up to the sky and you can, you see buzzards over Phoenix Park, you see buzzards over Stephen's Green, which you wouldn't have seen 10 years ago.
Yeah, true. So and here,
bird watching, and bird watching, it's a constant. No matter where you are, you can always do it, and it just gives you another dimension to your walk. If we're going out for a walk in the evening or whatever it is, it doesn't have to be on a coast or in a nature reserve. It can be in your local park or in your local neighborhood, and you'll see stuff. You'll see, ravens and blue tips and robins and blackbirds and song thrushes. So
and tick them off in your notebook.
Fantastic hobby to do it. Exactly. Yeah, if that's what you want to do.
Don't go there.
That's an entirely different conversation.
That's a slippery slope. What we call twitching. Which becomes a total obsession. And I've known marriages to dissolve. Seriously, you can get extreme, but a little bit. We all like to keep a list, especially the dads. My list is longer than yours and all that sort of thing. But you keep your own personal list, but don't get too focused on the list.
So I've got 4 minutes left on my free Zoom thing, but somebody said that as humans we come down to earth to learn life lessons, but the birds don't have any lessons to learn. They've learned them all, and they're teaching us lessons. So what lesson can they teach us, or is there any particular bird that had a lesson for you?
That's another tough question this morning. I think birds all kind of live harmoniously, right? Every bird has its place, every bird has its job, every bird has its its kind of role to play in the cycle of life, really, of Earth, of how the whole ecosystem works. You remove a few things from the ecosystem and it all collapses. So I think birds, for me, kind of teach us that we can all live in harmony if we really, really want to. And if you look what's happening globally at the moment, it's a bit of a mess. So and they all take care of the environment. So they all have their function, their role in keeping the ecosystem in check. And I think we need to take lessons from that and look at how they do that and how they adapt as well when things go a little bit awry. They're quite tough, they're a tough group of animals. But I think that, if we can kind of learn to kind of look at systems and learn to see how they work and look to see how we can repair them because a lot of them are broken. I think we would bring Ireland for a start, and then the rest of the planet to follow, and put it in a lot healthier position than it is now. So I think that's important.
That's a beautiful message, and I think that's a lovely place to end. And thank you so much. It was really fun talking about the birds, and I'll put more information in the show notes. News from Burren Nature Sanctuary. We're in the middle of school tour season with a group of students every morning in May and June. We also have scheduled botany talks for our adult visitors at 10:30 and 1:30, explaining about the magical flora and landscape of the Burren region. We have 7 bee orchids flowering in the Burren Botany Bubble, and the meadow is in full bloom. We're very excited to welcome more guests to our off-grid cabin experience. Our cabins are designed for minimal impact on this vulnerable environment and maximum impact on your health and well-being. They invite you to slow down, disconnect from technology, and reconnect with nature in a secluded, peaceful location looking across the wildflower meadow. The roof of each cabin is packed full of solar panels, which power your fridge, lights, and sockets. The cabins are nice and toasty in the cooler days, with our indoor stove and insulated walls. On warmer days, there is a fan in your cabin to keep you cool, and a full door fly screen if you wish to sleep with the door wide open. The kitchen comes equipped with a refrigerator, a 2-burner hob, a sink, stovetop kettle, and all essential utensils. And there is a wood barbecue fire pit to cook on outside or to just relax beside. The cabins have a hot waterfall shower, a Scandinavian dry toilet, and a wash basin. The water is harvested from the roof and treated to a high standard with filters and UV. As we want to leave as little impact on the environment as possible, we ask guests to only use biodegradable products provided in the cabins to assist our eco-friendly wastewater system. We also provide a stolp box. Guests can place their phone in the box for the duration of their stay and will be free of all incoming texts, calls, and notifications. But if you really have to work, you're welcome to use our high-speed fibre broadband Wi-Fi in the cafe during opening hours. Good pets are welcome. We will have a bed and a water bowl ready. We hope to see you soon.